Hello, everyone. So, this is the recorded lecture video on the Balanced Scorecard and the strategy map. So, the main reference for this discussion is the PDF file that I have uploaded in Canvas. So, you can also open your own copy in order for you to make your necessary notes or highlights as we move along the discussion. Right. So, after completing this chapter, you will be able to first explain why both financial and non financial measures are required to evaluate and manage a company's strategy. Now, we've discussed this in passing when we had our discussion on the conceptual framework on performance management systems. So, there we were able to learn that in the conduct of performance management, not only do we look at financial aspects of the business organization, but also we have to take into account the non financial measures. And then we should be able to understand how a balanced scorecard can represent cause and effect hypothesis of a company's strategy across financial, customer, process, and learning and growth perspectives. So, here in this chapter, we will discuss the four perspectives under the balanced scorecard. And then we should be able to explain why a clear strategy is vital for a company, appreciate the role for a strategy map to translate a strategy into financial, customer, process, and learning and growth objectives. Then we should be able to select measures for the strategic objectives in the four perspectives of a company's balance scorecard and strategy map. And then extend the balance scorecard framework to nonprofit and public sector organizations. So at the onset of this discussion, we will apply the balance scorecard to the profit oriented entities. So we should focus first on those companies that are private in nature. Private in a sense that their main purpose is to earn profit. And then later on, at the end of the discussion, we will apply those concepts to non-profit companies as well. Then we should be able to recognize problems that companies may experience when implementing the balanced scorecard and suggest ways to overcome them. So this Pioneer Petroleum, this is just an example of a company that is used in this chapter wherein the concepts of the balance scorecard are applied. Related to the balance scorecard. Okay, here it was discussed why companies use performance measurement systems. But I think it's already clear in our minds why do we do performance management systems. In here, the list is not exclusive, meaning dili na siya mao ang tanan nga reasons why we do performance measurement systems. Okay, but in essence, we want to link the management's goals, missions, and objectives to the um, activities done by our employees. Okay. Now, why do we have to use balance scorecard? Now, before the introduction of balance scorecard, before the balance scorecard was developed, no, there are certain measurements used by by our companies in order for them to measure their performance. But mostly, most of the measurements that they use are financial in nature. Like for example, here, um, if we okay, so for example, if we want to upgrade the skills of our employees so that we can, for example, make a better product in the future, The process of upgrading the skills of our employees require additional costs on our part. So, for example, this year, let's say this is year one, we want to upgrade the skills of our employees. So, um, we will use our funds to finance their trainings, seminars, and all other expenses that are related to the upgrading of the skills of our employees. So again, we have to incur costs. Makagasto ta para ana. So for this year, if you look at the financial statements of the company, you can see an increase in the expenses, right? So the increase in expenses would lead to a decrease in our net income. Kaya because nitaas man ang atong expenses, mugamay ang ato ang net income. So if you just look at that, like the financial aspect of it, you might come up with an erroneous interpretation of what is happening in the company. So kay ni decrease man ang net income, you can say nga the company is not performing well. However, in truth and in fact, the company is actually performing well because the skills of the employees have upgraded, and perhaps the result or the consequence of the upgrading of the skills of the employees will only be experienced by us in the next years. Kay dili man immediately nga for year one since karon man ta nag-training and all, karon na dayon nato ma-experience ang increase sa ato ang income, right? So the consequence of the upgrading of the skills of the employees might be experienced in year two, year three, and in the succeeding years. But if you just look at year one, you might say nga, you may draw a conclusion nga happening in the company, inside the company, but are not quantifiable, or we cannot put a financial value on it, such as the upgrade of the skills of our employees. So that is why we need to use frameworks. We have balanced scorecard, customized depending on the company. Then we have TQM, and under which we have Baldrige, Six Sigma, and so on. Then we have shareholder value and other performance measurement systems. But among those listed here, 62% of the companies have actually used the balance scorecard. So the other performance measurement systems, we will discuss this throughout our summer class, no? But you can now see the importance of why we discuss the balance scorecard first. Okay, so because last meeting we discussed the conceptual framework, and then we proceeded now to the discussion of specific performance management systems. And then the first one that we are discussing right now is the balance scorecard. And you now appreciate why that is. Okay. So first you'd see balance scorecard. You can see a huge discrepancy as to the usage of the performance measurement systems. Organization in order for us to what do you call this, in order for us to get a clearer picture and holistic picture of the organization. Okay, so here we can see that there are um, four perspectives. Okay, four perspectives that should be included in our balanced scorecard. And what are these four perspectives? Remember these four. Okay, we have the financial perspective, we have the customer perspective, we also have the process perspective. Sometimes process perspective is referred to as the internal measurement perspective or internal process perspective. And then we have learning and growth. So let's go back to the first perspective, which is the financial perspective. So this is where we would ask ourselves, how is success measured by our shareholders in terms of money? Okay, because this is financial, this refers to money. So how is success measured by our stake shareholders? Is success measured by our income, by our revenues, and so on. Okay, so this is more on the monetary aspect. Customers will keep on coming back, will keep on ordering from us, and will not transfer to other will not transfer to other companies. And then we have the we should ask ourselves, um how do we arrive or how do we achieve those objectives? And then lastly, we have learning and growth. So here we will ask ourselves, what employee capabilities, information systems, and organizational capabilities do we need to continually improve our processes and customer relationships? So, in summary, here are our four perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard. Again, we have the financial perspective. Here, we focus on the monetary aspect because this is what what our shareholders want. And then customer perspective, we focus on the customers. How do we retain customers? How do we add new customers? How do we satisfy our customers and so on? Then process perspective. So in order for us to achieve our financial and customer related goals, what do we need to change from the inside? Learned in our financial accounting subject. Okay, so this is not the same intangible asset. The intangible assets here pertain to the skills of the employees. Take note of that. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is to okay, so we have to follow the steps, okay? You have to start first with the financial perspective and then customer perspective and then process perspective and then learning and growth. So you cannot start from the bottom to top. So from top to bottom ta. Ato ang approach ani. Okay, so this is an example of a balanced scorecard. So on the first, kay scorecard man siya, you can imagine let's say an index card, no? Scorecard, any document. And then we have the first column which lists all our perspectives. We have the financial perspective. perspective, we want to increase our shareholder value. That is our goal. That's just an example. So it depends on the company. Okay, unsa inyong ganahan. And then for customer, for example, our objective is to retain customers. We want also to deliver our products on time, and we want also to offer competitive prices. So just list all your goals here or objectives related to that specific perspective. And then on the third column, we have the measures. So measures help us get a clearer perspective on our status with regard to our objectives. So because here the objectives are like general in nature, then the objectives are also expressed in statements or words, no? We have to translate it into something that we can measure. So, for example, how do we know that we have really increased our shareholder value? So, we need to measure it through, let's say, return on equity. Then, how do we know that we have achieved our objective to retain customers? Then we can measure it through percentage of repeat customers. Okay, so we have to translate our verbal objectives into something that we can measure, because a goal that is not measured, dili man na siya dali ma-achieve, or we in fact maglisod ta og achieve ana, because it is very general, so vague siya sa atong mind, dili siya clear sa ato ang mind. So dili, we are unsure whether we are really um facing the direction towards the achievement of our goals. Okay, then after we decide on the measures in relation to our objectives, we should also set a target. Okay, so for example, percentage of repeat customers. This is our measure, right? Let's say our target is to get at least 50% percentage of repeat customers. Okay? So after defining what are the measurements that we can use in order to know whether we have achieved our objectives or not, again, you need to set a target. So, unsa ganito atong buhaton, first is to lay down our um perspectives, right? And then what are our objectives in relation to the perspectives, and then set out our measures, and then define our targets. So there are, in simple terms, now we have only four steps. So first, lay out your perspectives. We have the four perspectives. And then define your objectives. And then your measures that you use in order to check whether we have achieved our objectives or not. And then lastly, set a target. Okay, so if you notice, the structure of our balance scorecard is like from general to specific. So for example, for financial, um how much shareholder value do we want to achieve? And then you dig deeper. So in order to achieve that, what do we need to do with our customers? Okay? And then, for example, to retain customers. So in order for us to retain customers, how do we change our internal processes? And then in order to achieve this change in our internal processes, what do we need to change with respect to our employees? So here, for example, increase shareholder value by retaining customers. And how do we retain customers? Let's say by improving our process quality. And how do we achieve improvement of process quality? Ganahan ta nga mas munindot pa ang quality sa ato ang products. Of course, we need also to upgrade the skills of our employees. So develop employees' process improvement skills. Okay. So this is an example of another balance scorecard, this time from the discount airlines. So let's say, okay, because this is an airline company, okay, so step one is to lay out our perspective. So we have financial, customer, process, learning, and growth. Now, with respect to the airline company, it wants to increase its profits and return on investment. How do they achieve this? Let's say through the growth of revenues or through the operation of fewer planes. And then how do they achieve the growth of revenues? They want to attract and retain more customers. So, in order for them to attract and retain more customers, what should they do? They should be able to arrive on time. Okay, if there are planes ba nga, known, nasa lay reputation for delays, murag dili kay taganahan dito nga airline company. And then we also want to offer lowest prices. So para ma-achieve nato ni nga maka-arrive ta on time and we can also offer low prices, what should we do with our process? So for this airline company, it wants to reduce ground turnaround times. And then how do they achieve this? How do they reduce ground turnaround times? They want to improve the training and motivation of the ground crew. So those are the objectives of the airline company. And then how do they measure these objectives with respect to profits? They can use the operating income. That's revenues minus expenses, right? And then they can also use the return on investment nga ratio. Then they also want to grow revenues, right? So how do they measure this? They will want to measure this through the presentation of a percentage increase in revenues, let's say per mile flown, and so on. Okay? Okay, so in preparing your objectives, in defining your objectives, you need to also consider your strategy. Now, strategy has two essential components. You have first a clear statement of the company's advantage in the competitive marketplace, what it does or intends to do differently, better, or uniquely compared to competitors. So this is more of the um, strengths side of the company. Nga, unsay naa nato, unsay ika-offer nato nga dili maika-offer sa ato ang competitors. And then second is the scope. You need also to define the scope of your strategy. So when we say scope, that actually refers mainly to your target market, for example. So sa kani nga services nga ato ang ganahan ihatag no sa market, kinsa raman nga mga tao ato ang gin-target. Ato bang middle class or unsa ba? So the scope of your strategy should also be clear in order for you to properly describe and define your specific objectives. So for example, for this airline company, no, Southwest Airlines, their strategy again, 'di ba? The strategy is composed of two things, your advantage and your scope. So for this example, let's say for Southwest Airlines, ang ilang advantage is that they can offer the speed of airline travel at the price, frequency, and reliability of cars, buses, and trains. So paspas. Then ang ilang scope is only to price sensitive travelers who value convenient flights. So if you can see, this strategy of the company is more of the verbal statements lang pod related to their competitive advantage and to their target market. Okay, so from your strategy, you can now make your objectives. Again, diba? Remember the steps that I have mentioned a while ago. So after your strategy, so you can now lay out your objectives. So these are examples of objectives related to a specific perspective. So for financial perspective, an example of an objective could be increase revenues through expanded sales to existing customers. And then for customer perspective, an example of an objective could be offer complete solutions for our targeted customers. For process perspective, an example of an objective could be to achieve excellence in order fulfillment through continuous improvements. And then for learning and growth, an example could be to align our employee incentives and rewards with our strategy. And then again, what comes next after defining our objectives? We need to also set up our measures. So, how can we measure our objectives? Because again, the objectives are just verbal statements or mga words ba, mga words. So how do we translate it into something that we can measure by setting up a measurement tool? So like what we discussed a while ago, we can use the percentage of repeat customers, can use the ROI and so on. Basta we have to make sure also that the measure that we want to use is responsive to our objective. It's the proper measurement for that specific objective. And then once we decide on our measurements, we can now set our targets. Like again, as what I have mentioned a while ago, for the measurement ng percentage of repeat customers, please set a target on that. Pila man ka percentage inyong ganhan ma-achieve. So at least 50%. So therefore, when you use your balance scorecard, and then you look at the percentage of the repeat customers, if you have indeed achieved 50%, then you are successful. Okay? And even kung mas higher than 50%, then that means the company is doing better than expected. So, strategy map, this is a picture that the companies use to illustrate the causal relationships among the strategic objectives across the four balance scorecard perspectives. So, ang strategy map is just your balance scorecard that is translated into a picture with the arrows, with the um shapes and so on. So but the purpose is for us to better understand the relationship between the one perspective to another. Okay. So this is an example of a strategy map. So for the financial perspective, kani siya nga mga items here, these are actually their um objectives. So they want to achieve sustained shareholder value through increased productivity and revenue growth. Now, financial performance here under financial perspective, we call them lag indicators. Anong lag indicators man? When you hear the word lag, what do you understand? Lag is murag naapay interval from the actual from the time nga nagbuhat kag something and up to the time nga nakita nimo ang effect sa imong gibuhat. So nay lag time. Now financial performance is a lag indicator mainly because whatever here that we can measure are all from the past. So for example, if you want to measure your ROI, return on investment, katong mga amounts nga imong gi-take into account in computing your ROI, those are the amounts that have happened in the past. Mo nang lag indicators siya. Historical ba? lag indicator. And then these other perspectives, we have customer perspective, process perspective, learning and growth perspective. We call them leading indicators. So again, lag indicators or lagging indicators. Lagging indicators. Ang kompleto niya nga term is lagging indicators. For the other perspectives, they are leading indicators. Leading because they will give us an idea of what will happen in the future. So futuristic leading indicators. Okay? So at this point, you need to know the difference between lagging indicators and leading indicators. So under customer perspective, okay, so we have to improve our product or service attributes. So, for example, with respect to the price, we may want to offer lower prices. With respect to quality, we may want to improve the quality of our products and services. With respect to time, function, and service as well. Okay. So, here we look at the customer value proposition. The customer value proposition defines the source of value. So, nganong makakita man si customer og value sa ato ang company, basin tungod kay lower atong prices or basin tungod nindot ato ang quality. So these are examples of your customer value proposition. These are the sources of the value that the customer sees from our company. And then we have the process perspective. The process perspective have four aspects. We have the operations management, customer management, innovation processes, regulatory and social processes. So for operations management, this relates to our day-to-day operations. For example, if we are a manufacturing company, then ang operations sa ato ang factory together with the logistics, no, ang pag-flow sa atong products from our source padung sa ato ang planta, and then ato ang actual manufacturing process, and then ang packaging and so on. Then customer management, this is in relation to how we accept and process customer orders, how do we process customer returns, how do we answer customer queries. So this is customer management. And then innovation, this is more on the development of our products. Say for example, we have a department for research and development, and we want to better our products. Let's say we want to have a better packaging of the products. Kung food products, unsaon man nato nga mas lami pa siya. Okay? So innovation. And then regulatory and social processes, this is with respect to your compliance with the policies set out by the government and the community in general. So, in order for us to continuously operate in that place, no, we need to comply with the government regulations. So, of course, we need to renew our business permit, we need to pay our taxes, and for example, if we are into manufacturing, we need to comply with the standards in relation to hazardous wastes um, that we throw, for example, sa ato ang rivers, ang smokes nga i-emit sa factory nato and so on. So we have to comply with the regulations set out by our government. And then for learning and growth perspective, these are again our intangible assets. Again, this is different from the intangible assets that we learn in financial accounting, because there in financial accounting, our intangible assets refer to patent, trademark, copyright, di ba? Kani siya nga mga intangible assets, this refers to our people, systems, and culture. Okay, so people, more on the human resources. Diri mo sud ang atong trainings, skills upgrade, no? And then systems, we can use, instead of manual nga process, we can use information technology. And then for culture, organizational culture and alignment, which drive improvement in the strategic processes. Okay. So this is our strategy map. Example of a strategy map. Okay. So if we look at these perspectives one by one, let's start with financial perspective. Again, we want to increase shareholder value through productivity improvements and growth of our revenues. So how do we achieve these objectives? So these are merely examples, huh? So for example, if you want to generate revenue growth, we can expand our revenue opportunities. And how do we do it? We want to generate sales from new products, so we also want to introduce new products para mas mataas atong revenues. Or do we want to gain new customers and maybe expand our business to new markets? And then here, improvement of the cost structure. So we want to lower our unit costs. So how do we arrive at this? Maybe we want to replace our old machines with newer ones nga mas taas ilahang ma-produce nga products or units every hour or every specific period. Or we would also want to reduce general and administrative expenses. So how do we do this? We can lay off some employees that are redundant. So for example, daghan kay mga sobra nga employees nga wala na yung mga gamit. So we can lay them off. So in doing so, we can reduce our general and administrative expenses. Okay, so kani siyang exhibit 2-8. This is actually 2-7, same ra sa 2-7, but with their measurements na. So how do we measure these objectives? And then for customer outcome, we have here the following objectives and then the measures. This is only a matter of reading. The exhibit 2-10, this is um, derived from our strategy map. So we have again our customer value propositions. Unsa gani ng customer value propositions? These are the things that we need to look into in order to deliver value to our customers. So for example, low total cost value proposition. So if low atong total cost, then we can offer a lower price. So here we can be a low cost supplier. Then even though we are offering the product at a low price, we can still deliver consistent high quality. We can provide a speedy, easy purchase and offer appropriate selection. Product leadership value proposition. This is another example of a customer value proposition. Another one is customer solutions value proposition. So here are our customer value propositions: low total cost, product leadership, customer solutions with the respective objectives. Kaning nasa ubos mo na iyang mga objectives. And then, gimatch na to with the objectives are the measures that we can use in order to check whether we have achieved our set out objectives. Then for process perspective, here let's look at the again for process objectives as what we have discussed a while ago, we have the operations, customer, innovation, and regulatory and social processes. So these are the four processes under the process perspective. Again, what is the other term for process perspective? We have internal process objective. Basta makakita mo word internal, that is referring to the process perspective. And remember the four processes under this perspective: operations, customer, innovation, regulatory, and social. And here are the things that we can use in order to measure these objectives. Okay, so this sums up our discussion on the strategies. Balik-balik ko na siya. Okay, then lastly, for learning and growth objectives, we have three aspects. We have human resources, information technology, and culture and alignment. Then at this portion of the chapter, this is when the strategy map and balance scorecard is applied to the sample company, which is Pioneer Petroleum. You can look at it on your own. Okay, so this is now the strategy map of the sample company, Pioneer Petroleum. And this is its balanced scorecard. So next question is, can we apply the balanced scorecard to nonprofit and government organizations? So as what we have discussed so far, especially with respect to financial perspective, 'di ba, we look at the profit, mainly the profit of the organization. Now, since we are mainly looking at the profit, then we can say that our discussion a while ago is purely based on private companies, those companies that are into profit making. But can we also apply the concept of the balance scorecard to nonprofit organizations and government organizations? The answer is yes. Yes, we can still apply the concepts of the balance scorecard to these type of organizations. So nonprofit organizations, when we say nonprofit organizations, um it doesn't always mean a government organization siya, because there are nonprofit organizations that are not owned by the government. Kanang mga charitable institutions nato. Then we have government organizations. So the government in general, and then we have the GOCCs as well. So can they use balance scorecard? Answer is yes. Yes, they can. But medyo lahi ang ilaha. So if you look at here, ang financial nila is not really their main or topmost concern sa ilang balance scorecard. Because again, these type of organizations are not into profit making. So their goal is not to increase profit, but rather their focus is on how they can deliver their services to their constituents. Okay, so for example, a charitable institution is focused on providing free education to street children, baron, for example, or those children that are belonging to families below the poverty line. So, ang ilahang main goal is not to increase profit, but rather to make sure that their services are being distributed well to their constituents. Okay, so ang ilahad here is first they look at the support. Okay, so how do we attract resources and authorization for our mission with respect to their targets for their citizens or constituents? And then they also have this process perspective, learning and growth perspective, and then financial. Okay. So as to the financial, ang ilang goal is not really to increase again their profit, but rather how can they allocate their donations received or funds received unsaon man nila pag-allocate sa ilang mga gina-promise nga mga services. Okay, so this is an example of a balanced scorecard of a nonprofit organization. So they look at their social impact, constituent, then operating processes, financial and organizational capacity. So if you notice, the balanced scorecard for a nonprofit organization is um, not really following the standard balance scorecard, no? Kaya ang standard balance scorecard nato, we start with financial perspective, then customer, then process, then learning and growth. But here, they have added some other perspectives that are relevant to their um to their nature of the organization. So we have here samples: social impact, constituent, and organizational capacity. Okay, so the balance scorecard can be very helpful in managing the business organization, because there we can see the holistic view of the organization, right? Why is it called balanced scorecard in the first place? It's balanced because we look at both financial and non-financial aspects of the organization. In fact, ang financial aspect is only one out of four, right? One out of four. So tuluan na non-financial. Usara ang financial sa ato ang perspectives. Then barriers to effective use of the balance scorecard. So what are um the reasons why sometimes the use of the balance scorecard is not that effective? Murag dili ma-achieve ang purpose of the balance scorecard. Ngano kaha? So first, we have this reason: senior management is not committed. So if the senior management is not committed, the tendency is they will just delegate it to lower management team. They don't want to be involved, so ma-defeat ang purpose, di ba? Because it's the senior management that will ultimately craft our long-term strategies, and if they don't want to do anything about it, di sila ganahan manghilabot sa ato ang preparation of the balance scorecard, then we can say nga basin mo fail ang atong pag-use sa balance scorecard. And then scorecard responsibilities do not filter down. This is the exact opposite of number one, because here in number one, ang top management di sila ganahan manghilabot. So ila rang gidelegate tanan, di sila ganahan mag-appeal-appeal. But here the second reason is when they refuse to delegate. So ganahan po sila nga sila lang. But if that happens, if only the top management is involved in the making of or in the crafting of our balance scorecard, um, limited lang ang ilahang mabutang dito, because we cannot expect them to know everything. Diba? So as to the specifics, they also need the help of the downline managers and even kanang mga rank and file employees as well. The solution is over-designed, or the scorecard is treated as a one-time event. So, murag pinabukish ra kaayo, too technical. Lisod siya i-achieve. Or they just look at the balance scorecard as something that they need to do. Like one of their tasks ra nga, oy, kailangan na nako himuon. After ana, wala na ko'y paki. Then the balance scorecard is treated as systems or consulting project. Again, we go back to the definition of a performance management, diba? Performance management should be a continuous process. It should be a continuous process. And since balance scorecard is one of our tools that we can use in our performance management, if we just treat it as a one-time event, it's just a project that has a start and an end, then it will defeat the purpose of having a performance management system at all in the first place, no? So if dili man day na siya nato buhaton on a continuous basis, we just treat it as a project that has a specific start date and end date, then it defeats the purpose of having it as part of our performance management system. Okay. So that ends our discussion on Balanced Scorecard. Take note of our key terms here. We discussed Balanced Scorecard, customer management processes, customer perspective, financial perspective, innovation processes, learning and growth perspective, measures, objectives, operations management processes, process perspective, regulatory and social processes, strategy map, targets, and value proposition. Now, after this video, after listening to this lecture video, check your Canvas, check your Canvas accounts, and you can see there a short quiz worth 20 points. You are to answer it within 15 minutes. So please take note of the due date of the short quiz because the quiz is only available up to this date. So make sure to answer it on time, right? Thank you.